with Rianne, and today we're going to be talking about her research into polyphenols. You might not know what they are, but we will go over them. So, Rianne, if you just want to introduce yourself to everyone, kind of what you do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so my name's Rianne Costello. So I'm a PhD researcher at the moment based down at the University of Chichester, so down on the south coast. And as Matt said, my research is primarily focused on polyphenol supplementation and whether or not it can help with recovery, particularly from strenuous exercise. And aside from that, I'm also a sport and exercise nutritionist registered sports nutritionist. So I do bits of consultancy work and stuff as well alongside the PhD.
Cool. So what I want to talk about today mainly is obviously you do a lot. Your research is in about kind of the muscle damage and like achiness, right? So most people when they say they haven't, there are a lot of the ladies that come onto our program. Maybe they do exercise, but maybe they also haven't exercised in a while. Can sometimes be an issue. And then you're obviously more likely to feel a bit achy if you haven't done it in a while. Not that you have to feel achy at the same time to mean that it's done anything, which is another topic. But if you could just kind of touch on kind of what your research particularly looked at and what you found, and then how we can kind of relate that to if you do ever feel kind of achy after month, how to kind of ways to overcome that, because obviously that can put off people from doing it like again, right? And that's not what we want. This wants to be a positive habit that we keep doing, build momentum. So if you could just kind of go over what your research is in and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So my research, as you said, it's looked at New Zealand blackcurrant in particular. So we've used this type of polyphenol, if you like, because it is rich in this active substance called polyphenols, and there's been from lab-based studies evidence to say that it could help with recovery and and this feeling of achiness that we get in the hours after exercise. So whether it's not immediately post, but like the day after or 2 days after, and that's tend to when we feel quite sore in the muscles that we've exercised. And so we just wanted to explore that really and just see, whether this particular supplement could help alleviate some of those symptoms and help you feel better quicker. So then you can go obviously back and do the next gym session or whatever it is, I guess sooner. Because obviously, I guess psychologically, if you feel sore, it kind of puts you off going back and A, doing the exercise again, and B, pushing yourself as hard as you perhaps would if you felt quite fresh. The research kind of is looked at that. Like I said, we've done lab-based work because that's kind of where we always have to start with these things. And then we've also done some applied work in the field, if you like. So what I mean by that is we've actually taken a real life situation where people that were running a half marathon event, we got them to supplement or take this particular polyphenol for the days leading up to the event, and then had people run this half marathon. Obviously, we had a placebo group as well, just to control, so we could double check, I guess, to make sure that if there is an effect of the blackcurrant supplement. And then we just looked at a few different measures to just try and see whether or not it was obviously beneficial for recovery, I guess. And then other than that, we've looked at something that's quite important, I guess, when considering these kind of foods, is that if you ingest it, does it appear then in your bloodstream and stuff at sufficient levels that you would expect it then to have a positive effect on helping with this achy feeling and stuff like that. So that's something else that we've looked at as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So if we rewind back a bit and go into what actually is a polyphenol, because most people probably wouldn't even know what that is. And I'll be honest, like you see a lot of, I would say there's probably like arguments even within the literature, like what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Really good point, Matt. I think the problem is with polyphenols is it's such a broad, area, and there's so many different types of polyphenols, and I'm sure that we'll probably still discover some new ones, in years to come. But I guess a good thing to point out at this stage is that lots of people hear of vitamin C and E. We mentioned it just before we started the podcast, and they're kind of more what you'd say is your antioxidants. So just to avoid confusion for people, antioxidants and polyphenols, I guess the terms get used interchangeably, but I think it's quite important to point out that antioxidants tend to cover vitamin C and E, which are something a little bit separate, and then polyphenols are these kind of active substances, if you like, that have got known health benefits in fruits and vegetables and things, also in red wine. I think this is why a lot of people think there's been some health claims made, particularly in the newspapers and stuff about benefits of drinking red wine and chocolate and things like that. So and essentially polyphenols are typically the substances within these foods that give them their bright color and the taste typically. So if you think of blueberries, why they're quite, that dark blue color, it's mainly because of these polyphenols that are within them. So I hope that kind of covers it.
Yeah. So what kind of benefits do polyphenols have? Like not just with, and we'll go into your research in a minute and like muscle aching in particular, but what kind of benefits have they been shown to have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just taking a step back and looking at it, broadly, polyphenols have been shown to kind of help with blood pressure, help with cholesterol levels, and that kind of thing, really. So it's more, I guess, on the kind of cardiovascular side of things, if you like. So just helping with improvements in blood flow and things like that. But again, there's been lots and lots of work done with polyphenols, but a lot of it has been in like lab-based controlled studies, if you like, in cell dishes and stuff. So I think a big area of research, obviously, needs to be done is, does this then translate through to humans, all the time kind of thing. So that's a big question mark, I guess, at the moment still.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing, because like I said before when we were chatting about like some of the stuff in terms of like anti-nutrients, things that might have a health benefit in one area but might bind to something like iron or something like that, like that could have a negative effect in certain people. And I don't think that's, for the majority of people, I don't think that's even an issue. With trends and the way they are, and if someone's taking like, so your research looked at like blackcurrant, right?
Yes.
Someone's taking like a supplement for this, you can argue that it's like such a high dose that potentially would be an issue. I don't know, like just hypothesizing. But so you got blood pressure benefits, cholesterol, like more cardiovascular blood flow.
Yes.
What recommendations would you do to help people get these polyphenols into the diet? Like you've obviously got bit of a long-winded question, I guess. So your research, kind of, what exactly polyphenol did you look at? I know we kind of touched on this, but what did you find? And then also, what recommendations would you give for people who, like most of the people who, like myself and then everyone else, like maybe we don't want to take like a supplement, but what would your recommendations be to get it in? So firstly, if you just kind of go over your research, kind of what you found in particular in terms of muscle ache, because I think that's more of something you can potentially see benefit from instantly, that can help you keep going.
Yes, absolutely. So my research has looked at blackcurrant, as you say, but it's this particular strain, if you like, from New Zealand. And I guess why we've looked at that one is because the optimal growing conditions, if you like, in New Zealand. So we do get blackcurrants in this country as well, but their polyphenol content isn't as great, I guess, as they are from New Zealand. So that's why we were particularly interested in this one. And as I mentioned to you, kind of off air, there's been some performance-based benefits with that, but more with lab-based stuff. So not necessarily translatable in this situation. But I think from my own research, thinking of recovery and stuff, and we've looked at, as you say, muscle soreness in the days and the hours following, a bout of strenuous exercise, where somebody's really, really, really pushed themselves. We haven't necessarily seen a benefit, if I'm honest, with our particular supplement and study design, but that's not to say that it wouldn't work for everyone, because I think it's really important at this point to stress that you and I are different and everyone else is we're an individual, and there's lots and lots of reasons for why something like this, like blackcurrant, might work for one person but not work for another person, and that might be down to their gut bacteria and whether everything's optimal there, because we know that a lot of I guess the breakdown, if you like, of polyphenols in blackcurrant, for example, this occurs in the gut, in the colon kind of thing. So if you haven't got happy gut bacteria, then maybe it's not going to work for you. And again, this is an area where more research is needed, because we're still not 100% sure. But there have been, taking a step aside from my own work, there has been benefits shown with different types of polyphenols. So as I mentioned to you off air, there's tart cherry juice is one thing that's been shown to have a positive effect on this kind of soreness and achy feeling, if you like. So maybe it's just trying different things and seeing if they work. But obviously, all of this I'm talking about at the moment, we're talking about supplement, actual taking a supplement, where the doses within these supplements, whether it's the juice or these capsules that we tend to see, they contain amounts that are a lot greater than you would get from the normal kind of diet. You'd have to eat an awful lot of these berries and currants to get that same amount. Yeah, you probably look like a Ribena, so just so I think and I'm sure you agree, Matt, but I think the most important thing is for people to kind of focus on this food first approach, to try and get it from their diet first of all. And I think what's quite nice about this is it is easy to do, because and like I said, any of these berries, fruit and veg and things that contain that, they're really bright in color, or have quite rich color, typically have some level of polyphenol in. So you could go raspberries, blueberries, these kind of things and stuff. So
so with the cherry juice,
yes,
you said that helps recovery.
Yes.
Did that also help sleep? Was that why not?
No, I think that's two kind of separate things. Okay. The study that I can think of, this wasn't within the same study, if you like, but there's just the amount of research that's out there. There's more in tart cherry juice than there is in any other of these kind of polyphenol based supplements, if you like. So the strength of the literature is kind of more there for, I guess, tart cherry. And yes, as you mentioned, there has been some research to suggest that it could help with improving sleep quality and hygiene as well. So just taking a dose of this before you go to sleep, making you wake up and feel a bit more refreshed, and more kind of alert and ready for the day, I guess.
So if someone was struggling to sleep, would you say that is that something someone could easily buy? Is it any cherry juice, or is it?
That's a really good question. I think the majority of the literature has looked at this particular again strain, if you like. So it's called Montmercy, I think, terry juice. And if you go into Sainsbury's or Tesco's and stuff, I think if you just go down the fruit and juice aisles, and you can tend to see these bottles of cherry juice, and you can look on the side and see what kind of cherry it is normally. But yeah, you can definitely buy it in the shops, or Holland and Barrett and that kind of thing. So it is something that's accessible to people.
Okay. Yeah, so it could be something to try. Obviously, like, I'm always wary of just adding in calories for the sake of it, but something that probably isn't going to do much harm, I guess. Like, I mean, what's the dose that they took in the study?
In that particular. Yeah. I mean, in our research, the blackcurrant dose has been about 210 milligrams per day of this particular polyphenol that has been shown to have some health benefits in the lab and stuff. So again, that's quite a lot of that particular type of I guess polyphenol. But if you were to eat it from the diet, I've seen people, because we've tried recording what people's kind of day-to-day intake is like of these polyphenols, and some people do hit that kind of 200 level, but I think that's particularly those people that kind of are interested in the Mediterranean diet, so because they're of that kind of background or whatever, so for them it's probably a bit easier because it just comes naturally to them. But for us, maybe we'd have to make a bit more of a conscious effort to try and on our plate include some of these things in there just to get that level up. But it's a really good question. The dose, again, a big question mark. We're not quite sure exactly, what is there a threshold that you need to meet? We're not sure at the moment.
Yeah, well, when my oldest daughter was struggling to sleep, I think Jen actually, she was following someone on like Instagram, and they were like, "Oh, since we've been giving our daughter cherry juice, she's actually been going to, let's just try it." And whether it was coincidence or not, she did actually sleep. And then we did it for about 6 weeks straight. We'd give her some actual cherries, and then maybe But whether that was complete placebo or not, did actually work. And it could have been just pure placebo, and it could have been that she was just eating more. I don't know. It was quite interesting. Definitely. But I think with the sleep aspect, it's one of those things which is a bit like I talked to Shelley, so Dr. Shelley Coe, who came on the other week and talked about cocoa. It's something that someone can add into their routine that's very simple to add in, like hot cocoa, because obviously polyphenol and cocoa as well. So with regards to like fruit, vegetables as well, it's we know that polyphenols are in them, and I mean, this is maybe like devil's advocate a little bit. Like, do we know that that's coming from, like, say, like blood pressure, cholesterol, the cardiovascular? Because we know that obviously fruit and vegetables, everyone just goes, they're good for you. Is that, how much of that do you think is down to polyphenols, or do you think it's, I know it's a broad question, but like, because we're so just early in that, like, how much do we get into it to the extent where we're like, are we missing the forest for the trees, if that's the saying? No,
definitely. I think really good question. From a whole food perspective, honestly, I don't think we really know, because unfortunately the way that I guess we tend to approach things as scientists is we have a hypothesis and we pick whatever it is that we're interested in, and a lot of the time we have to kind of choose these isolated compounds. So it might be a one particular type of polyphenol that we're looking at, and we check out potential benefits in the lab situation, and then you might see a benefit, and at that point then people will be like, oh, there's been this kind of benefit shown, so research needs to go off and check it again in this situation. And as you say, it's such an early, we're just making baby steps at the moment with it. I don't think we're quite there yet, so honestly, I'm not entirely sure how much of it is these health benefits are from polyphenol, from fruit and veg that we eat. But to be honest, there's not been any reported negative side effects, I guess, is the other really important point to make at this stage with taking these type of supplements. There's not been any reports of people having poorly tummies or feeling ill, so that's I guess a benefit. As long as it's helping with general health and well-being, then it's got to be a good thing, I guess.
Kind of do no harm first, and if it depends, again, it depends on the individual. Like,
definitely,
like cherry juice might help, but it's not going to do any harm. And that's something I always talk about a lot. Like, you can speak to someone, they can tell you to do something, but you might be like, well, the risk is that this happens. It's like, it's just unethical. You see so many supplements out there that you think the side effect, like, sitting on the loop for the rest of the day. Because I mean, some of the issues, I guess, with more fruit and veg is some people say, like, I work with people with like IBS, and if they eat quite a lot of like certain foods, like certain fruits, sometimes vegetables, they can trigger it. So if they try to get in like the amount of polyphenol from fruit and veg, might not actually, and they can actually get quite a lot of side effects, be it kind of indigestion or actually bowel movements, like, which is that's not nice, and actually that could have a detrimental effect on their absorption of other nutrients. Anyway, so it's a fine line with that. Like, it's obviously, like, we don't know enough about it, and I guess the more you go into little kind of pockets like polyphenols, the more you kind of right, we're after like the 1% maybe here, right? Because it's like beetroot like juice has quite a lot of stuff on it, right?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So like, what's the mechanisms behind that? Is that polyphenol related or something else?
Again, it kind of comes down to this, effect on blood flow, like I said. So it's just been shown to kind of upregulate these particular mechanisms that are associated with improving, like vasodilation. So just helping to expand blood vessels and stuff. And again, we're not entirely sure with particularly with blackcurrant what the exact mechanism, would be. And I think the issue is that I guess we haven't really touched on this yet, but it's important to kind of know that when you ingest these types of polyphenols, that they break down into, hundreds of different types of other types of polyphenols, if you like, as soon as they reach the gut and go through this kind of secondary digestion, if you like. So again, if it's them that's causing this effect, or if it's the original polyphenol, we're not quite sure. I think there's a bit of evidence to say that it's probably the second level of breakdown products, if you like, from the original anthocyanin, polyphenol. I think again with the mechanisms, coming back to that, I think my thoughts and feelings would be, yes, it is something along the blood flow side of things, helping with this vasodilation, like I said, so just helping to expand blood vessels and whatnot, and also with helping to reduce inflammation. So going back to kind of our original part of the talk where we're talking about, this achy and sore feeling from strenuous exercise or from a gym session or whatever it is, a part of that is what tends to happen in the hours afterwards is we do get an increase in inflammation. And a lot of people kind of get scared with this term. They're like, oh, inflammation, that's a bad thing. But actually, it's a really important part of the recovery process. And we need it to kind of help us, recover, build up, get better, get stronger, whatever. And I guess one of the big question marks as well that we've got is, whether too much of a good thing can become a bad thing. So again, my kind of feelings are, if we can, and people, from a digestibility point of view, are able to take it in from a food perspective, great. Because again, I think something that we lose sight of when we start taking supplements and things is that we've got to bear in mind that there's, as you say, there's like interactions between different parts of, these foods and stuff, and we get the fiber content as well, which I think is really important. Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent.
It's fascinating what you said there, because I remember, don't quote me on it, it was ages ago, but there was a study on taking anti-inflammatories after exercise to reduce your inflammation so you could train again, right?
Yeah.
And they wanted to see whether like reducing inflammation would potentially mean that you train harder because you're less achy, and you get a better effect over time. And they didn't show any difference in that. Obviously, it's very hard. I remember seeing it, thinking I didn't do anything. It's what I remember. And it's just quite interesting how it seems like you have to deal with some kind of stress, some stress to elicit a response. Like, for example, doing some squats, you'll feel the burn on your leg. In your legs, like you need your body to kind of deal with that to get stronger. And then I guess it comes down to promoting recovery. So in terms of promoting recovery, obviously we know, and it's something I bang on about all the time, is like going back to like protein, really basic stuff. Obviously movement in general to increase blood flow anyway, in a kind of natural way. Anything else that you would kind of recommend based on like your research and the literature that you've looked at to produce the research? So what would be kind of your key things? And you can include things like protein. So if you would say like 5 things to help someone who is exercising but doesn't really like feeling achy. Obviously, no one really likes. Well, actually, some people do actually because they feel like something. But I would go as far as saying you don't have to feel achy. I just want to make this clear: you don't have to feel achy for it to have worked. Everyone's very different with their threshold. So if you were to kind of break down like 5 things.
Break down 5 things.
Protein,
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
not polyphenol based. Yeah.
not polyphenol based.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I do think, getting enough carbohydrate definitely is one thing, because we know that we need ample, glucose, and then obviously glycogen within the muscle to help us do our exercise sessions and do them well and stuff. So in whatever form you want to take that, obviously I'm always going to say food first approach, as I'm sure you do, Matt, as well. So protein, absolutely. Whether you're a vegan, vegetarian, or you happy eating meat, just making sure that you're getting a really good range of different protein intakes, so whether that's dairy, meat, beans, pulses, whatever, just making sure you're covering all the bases, I think, with that, because again, the evidence, taking polyphenols aside, I think the evidence is probably strongest for protein with helping with recovery and growing and building and all of these things. So and I'm sure you talk to your clients about this all the time, but actually you could eat, females could eat a lot of protein, or have these protein supplements, but we're not going to get huge, and I think that's really important to make it. It's just such an important part of our diet, to help with just health and well-being, really, and just recovery and things. Other than that, obviously thinking of fiber as well, so just making sure you're getting enough in there. Obviously if you've got conditions where fiber can exacerbate problems, obviously seek your advice, I guess, Matt. Just to make sure you're not upsetting that too much, but definitely trying to make sure that you're getting sufficient fiber in the diet. Fluids as well, I think we often forget about fluid intake, and that can include things like tea and coffee. It's not just water as well. So
tea and coffee.
Yes.
Dehydrating or hydrating?
I think the evidence would actually say it's not dehydrating now. I think that's a bit of a that one's been put to bed.
I'm just gonna have a sip of my coffee. Hang on.
Go on.
To hydrate.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, the other thing. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
Beer. Sorry, that you just reminded me. Beer being just as hydrating as water in some events. That was quite interesting.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. I headline and just thought I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Go on.
I was just gonna. I was going to say with tea and coffee as well, bringing polyphenols back in, but tea and coffee are a great source of polyphenols. That's another thing I should probably point out as well.
And I bet most of the population actually get it. I read somewhere that now, like, teas and coffees are literally one of our most popular source of nutrients, like antioxidants and polyphenols.
Yeah, definitely. I think, you've got to bear in mind there's also things like green tea and stuff. And, for a while now, that's been kind of thought to have, good health benefits and stuff. And I guess it comes down to these polyphenols because, again, it's rich in that. So, again, it's not just food. You can get it from other sources as well, I guess. And, being a tea loving nation, I guess, like you say, we probably get a lot of it from tea.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Anything else at all?
Anything else? I guess in terms of, sorry, go on.
That for recovery, in terms of like helping with muscle achiness, like especially if you're just starting out. So we got protein to help, obviously, with recovery. Not to mention keeping you full up, skin, hair, nails galore. I've worked with some of the ladies and they've gone, since I've been eating more protein, I don't have split nails anymore. Like stuff like the really like stuff that no one talks about. I've never noticed, but carbohydrates, obviously, because, and this is an interesting one. I had a question the other day, and so one lady I work with used to be vegetarian.
Okay.
Now she's like eats like fish and chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she was told that you basically need to make sure that you eat complex carbohydrates. Specifically, it was really like so specific. It was a bit like. Like just potatoes, to make sure that you absorb the protein. And I explained that essentially carbohydrates are just protein sparing. So essentially, if you've got carbohydrates, your body might use that as energy, so that the protein which isn't just for energy. Its predominant source is to help you recover, can get to work making you recover quicker, whereas the carbohydrates will then be used for energy. However, in a fat loss setting, it's not exactly the worst thing if you get your body using a bit more protein than normal, because you've got to put something in the tank, and if protein keeps you full up, you might end up reducing your calories, and calorie deficit means fat loss. So there's a bit of a cycle and a puzzle that you've got to put together, and that's something that we do. But yeah, so we've got protein, carbs, fiber. Again, that's going to help you get you full up. Fluids, obviously very important, and I'm always banging on about this because it's one of the simplest things that everyone can do without needing any fancy supplement or equipment that can have such a big effect. Like, people ask me a question like, what's the best type of carb, or what's the best type of protein powder, or should I take cod liver oil? But then they're not even drinking, 4 glasses of water or something, which is so simple. And then I work with people who they've increased their water intake, and their IBS, constipation's gone, like improved massively. So yeah, it's interesting. So yeah, anything else on top of that?
I guess obviously, we've talked about it already, but just making sure plenty of colour, like eat the rainbow, I think is quite a good way to think of it, with your fruit and veg. But in terms of supplements, because obviously we've kind of talked about it, I guess, haven't we, with the polyphenol intake and stuff, and a lot of the literature has looked at supplements as opposed to whole foods, and I guess it's a big gap in the research at the moment. It needs answering. But with supplements, I'm not trying to say that never touch them, because they do have their place. And I do think in some situations, like you were saying, if a person has an issue with eating lots of fruit and vegetables, how are they going to get their polyphenols in, basically, apart from tea and coffee or something like that? So I think in that situation, they could have a benefit, and again, taking a bit of sidestep, I've worked with somebody before who was doing absolute mental, but doing a massive unsupported ride all the way across America to Canada on his own, and he had to pack all his food on his bike, and do this massive expedition. And I worked with him in the months leading up to it to kind of plan out where he'd stop and get food and all these things. But obviously in that situation, I know this is a very extreme example, but where's his fruit and veg going to come from? Because ultimately he can't really get enough in. So we ended up recommended he take some of these polyphenol supplements with him, just because even if it's just a bit of an insurance policy, I guess, just to make sure that we're helping him with recovery and things, because like I said, in that situation, likelihood is no, he's not getting enough. So again, I do think they have their place, but it's just very it's very individual and very situation dependent, I guess, is what I'm trying to say as well.
Well, it's like with vitamins, I always say to people, like, people ask me, should we take them? And I always say, like, in terms of like an insurance policy, to make sure that you've got like your vitamins in place. Like, I'm kind of the opinion that most people are busy and tired. Most people I work with are busy and tired, and they don't probably eat as they want to eat.
Yes, yeah.
I think it takes the pressure off a little bit, potentially, by just taking them. Like, it's like probably about 10p a serving. Yeah. And it might just be the difference, and it might even get you into a habit of doing something. So you start your day, and even if it's like the fact that you have to drink the multivitamin with a glass of water, well, it means you've drank a glass of water. Yeah. Which is positive. So yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Cool. Perfect. I think we've summed up polyphenols. Anything else you want to add to that?
I guess I'll just pick up on your comment, where people were asking you about, should I take, like vitamin supplements and stuff. And we talked about this briefly off air, but, vitamin C and E, particularly vitamin C, are probably, the ones that people are like most familiar with. And obviously vitamin C is extremely important in, production of collagen. So, for our skin health and stuff as well, and for our bones and our connective tissues and whatever. So, and we typically get it from citrus fruits or from peppers or, things like that. But sometimes people, particularly in the winter, because obviously flu and cold season and whatever, people start taking way more vitamin C. Sometimes E as well. And I guess it's just being aware that, with those in particular, there is evidence to say, too much of that can be a bad thing. So, but as you kind of said before, it's, it's crazy high doses that you'd have to take for it to become, bad for you, I guess, if you like, or a little bit toxic. So just again, it's okay to take them, but just, if it says one capsule a day, stick at that. Don't go crazy.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, because even though some of those capsules have about 1,000%, don't they?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Perfect. So thanks for that.
That's okay, no worries. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. No, just thank you for the opportunity. Yeah.
So I think key things are obviously basics with protein, helping with in terms of improving someone's diet. Protein, water is going to be key. We know that already. Fluids, and then a few things that someone could try just to sum up is that potentially the cherry juice will help with sleep recovery.
Yep.
And before that there is your sleep hygiene, right?
Yes, yeah.
It's making sure it's dark. And I speak about this a lot, tonic use before bed. It's really basic stuff that we know.
Yeah.
And sometimes, when I work with people, it's when you're kept accountable to these things, you're more self-aware, then you end up doing them. For example, it might be that you read for 10 minutes before bed. And when you do, you give yourself a tick in a box. When you start to track that, you might start to correlate between how well you sleep, your energy the next day, your ability to make better food choices, and just that 10 minutes of reading before bed. It's very, rather than scrolling and being stressed an email. There's nothing else to be that well email before you get to bed. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. It's not good.
Cool. So I'm off to get some cherries and
perfect.
go from there. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Rianne.